Emma Wilson had always lived a life that seemed steady on the surface but quietly lonely underneath. Every morning, she followed the same predictable routine: wake up at 6, make herself a cup of coffee, scroll through her phone for a few minutes, and head out to the cafe near her apartment where she always sat at the same corner table, watching people pass by, listening to the hum of conversations, yet never joining them. She liked the familiarity, the sense that nothing could surprise her, nothing could disrupt the carefully arranged calm she had built for herself. Her apartment was modest, cozy in a minimalistic way, with books stacked neatly on shelves and soft light streaming in through curtains she always left half-drawn, as if to keep the world slightly at a distance. Emma had friends, of course, a few she kept in touch with on social media and phone calls, but she had learned over the years to keep her heart guarded. Past heartbreaks had left small, invisible cracks that she was careful not to widen, and so she stayed in her comfort zone, feeling safe in predictability. Yet on this particular rainy Thursday afternoon, as she sat alone in her usual cafe, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly, her phone vibrated in her hand, breaking the monotony. She picked it up and saw a message from Lucas Carter, a coworker she had known in passing, someone whose presence she had barely noticed until now. The message was simple, casual, and yet entirely unexpected. "Hey Emma, I know this is sudden, but would you like to join me for a pottery class this weekend? I thought it could be fun." She stared at the words, her mind racing in ways it hadn't for a long time. Pottery? She had never thought of herself as the creative, artistic type. She had always admired people who could mold clay into beautiful shapes, paint, or write poetry, but she herself had stayed firmly in the realm of practicality. The thought of spending hours in a room full of strangers, awkwardly trying to shape clay, made her stomach twist. And yet, there was something in Lucas's tone, the friendly warmth in his words, that made her hesitate before dismissing the idea. For a brief moment, she felt a spark of curiosity, a tiny, rebellious voice inside her saying, "Why not?" She had spent years avoiding anything that felt uncertain, that carried the risk of embarrassment or failure, and yet, here was a small opportunity knocking at her door, wrapped in simplicity and innocence, and she felt a strange pull toward it. Emma read the message again, studying the casual way Lucas had phrased it, and imagined the scene: a bright, airy pottery studio, the smell of wet clay and wood in the air, the quiet hum of people concentrating, the soft laughter of someone beside her as she struggled to shape her own bowl. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement, a sensation she hadn't experienced in years, and it scared her, the same way a gust of wind might startle someone who had been indoors for too long. She considered ignoring it, scrolling past, sending a polite "maybe next time," and returning to her quiet life, but the thought made her chest tighten, a subtle ache of regret already forming before anything had even happened. Her mind replayed countless moments of hesitation from her past, missed chances, silent opportunities she had let slip because she was afraid to step into the unknown, and she realized with a jolt that this time, she didn't want to do that. Maybe it was the rainy weather that made everything feel more reflective, or maybe it was just the right timing, but she felt a sudden surge of courage, tiny yet resolute, whispering to her that life could be more than routines and familiar streets and coffee cups she had memorized the smell of. She typed a reply almost instinctively, her fingers trembling slightly as she wrote, "Sure, I'd love to join. Thank you for inviting me." After hitting send, a rush of anticipation mingled with anxiety filled her. What had she just agreed to? Would it be awkward? Would she embarrass herself in front of Lucas or other people in the class? But alongside the nerves was an unexpected thrill, a sense of possibility she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She imagined stepping into the studio, the warmth of the room contrasting with the chill outside, the soft sound of clay being molded, the sight of Lucas smiling and showing her how to shape the material with ease. Her mind raced with what-ifs, but, for the first time in a long time, she also felt what could be, and it was enough to make her heart beat faster with excitement. That evening, as she returned to her apartment, the rain tapping gently on the window, Emma thought about how small decisions could carry enormous weight, how one simple yes could open doors she had never imagined existed. She realized that her life had been full of tiny, unspoken hesitations that kept her confined, and now, with this unexpected invitation, the wall she had built around her comfort zone seemed less intimidating. She thought about the possibility of discovering something new about herself, the way she might laugh, stumble, and learn alongside Lucas, and even if nothing romantic or extraordinary came from it, she would at least have stepped outside her own carefully drawn boundaries. Emma spent the night imagining the weekend, going over every detail in her head, the smell of clay, the gentle instructions of the teacher, the quiet laughter of shared mistakes, and the soft, encouraging presence of Lucas. She realized that her life, which had felt so ordinary, was suddenly tinged with the promise of change, small yet significant, and that possibility alone brought warmth to a heart that had long been used to waiting. By the time she fell asleep, she knew something fundamental had shifted. She had chosen to try, to take a step into the unknown, and in doing so, she had opened herself to experiences, emotions, and connections that could never have existed if she had stayed safely within her routine. It was a simple choice, a fleeting moment of courage, but for Emma, it felt monumental, as if she had given herself permission to be alive again, to explore, to feel, and to embrace life's unexpected turns. And as the rain continued to patter softly against her window, she drifted off with a quiet smile, unaware that this small act of saying yes would ripple through her days in ways she could never yet imagine, changing not only her weekend but the entire rhythm of her life, leading her toward new friendships, laughter, gentle moments of connection, and perhaps, the kind of quiet, tender love she had always hoped to find but never dared to seek. When Saturday arrived, Emma felt a mix of excitement and nervous tension she hadn't experienced in years, her hands fidgeting as she unlocked her apartment door and stepped out into the crisp morning air, the city humming with life around her, umbrellas bobbing through puddles and the faint smell of fresh rain lingering on the streets. She walked to the pottery studio, her heart racing at the thought of trying something so unfamiliar, and as she approached, she noticed the warm glow of the studio lights through large glass windows and the quiet chatter of people inside. Lucas was there, shaping a small bowl with remarkable ease, his movements confident yet gentle, and when he looked up, his eyes met hers with a friendly warmth that made her chest tighten and her nerves settle just slightly. He waved her over, and she felt a flutter in her stomach as she crossed the threshold, the scent of wet clay and polished wood filling her senses and bringing a strange sense of comfort. Emma hesitated for a moment, scanning the room full of strangers, each focused on their clay, and then reminded herself that she had said yes for a reason, that this was her chance to step into the unknown and discover something new about herself. As she joined Lucas, he smiled reassuringly and guided her to her workspace, showing her how to dampen the clay, shape it with her hands, and find a rhythm in the motions she had never attempted before. At first, Emma felt clumsy and awkward, the clay slipping through her fingers, creating lopsided forms that made her laugh nervously, yet Lucas's gentle encouragement and quiet patience made her feel at ease, and she began to lose herself in the process, letting go of self-conscious thoughts and allowing the simple act of molding clay to absorb her attention. As they worked side by side, Lucas shared little stories about his childhood, about how he had discovered pottery by accident and fallen in love with the way raw clay could transform into something meaningful with care and attention, and Emma listened intently, surprised at how easily their conversation flowed, how natural it felt to laugh and respond to someone she had barely known a week ago. She shared small pieces of herself too, moments from her past, memories that were usually kept private, finding in Lucas a listener who didn't judge, who seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and experiences, and with each story exchanged, the connection between them grew, subtle yet undeniable. Time passed quickly, the world outside fading as the studio became their shared space of concentration, laughter, and gentle companionship, and Emma noticed the way Lucas's hand would occasionally brush hers when demonstrating a technique, a fleeting touch that sent unexpected warmth through her chest and made her wonder if he felt the same way she did. By the end of the session, their hands were coated with clay, smudges marking their fingers and aprons, a playful evidence of the time spent creating and learning together, and they stepped outside into the golden light of late afternoon, the rain having stopped and the city glistening under the sun's soft rays. Lucas looked at her with something unspoken in his eyes, a question hovering in the space between them, and Emma felt her heart beat faster, torn between cautious restraint and the thrill of possibility, realizing that her feelings were shifting in ways she hadn't anticipated. They walked slowly down the streets, talking about the experience, sharing jokes and small insights, and Emma noticed how comfortable she felt in his presence, how her usual anxiety about new experiences had melted away, replaced by curiosity and a gentle, growing affection that made her smile more freely than she had in a long time. When they finally parted ways, Lucas giving her a light, lingering smile and a soft, "See you soon?" Emma felt a warmth settle in her chest that was more than just the result of a pleasant afternoon. It was the feeling of connection, of shared experience, of opening her heart to someone new and discovering that it wasn't frightening but exhilarating. She walked home slowly, replaying moments from the class in her mind, the laughter, the accidental spills of clay, the quiet exchanges of encouragement, and realized that trying something she had been hesitant about had led her not only to a new experience but to a person who seemed to understand and compliment her in ways she hadn't expected. That evening, as she washed the clay from her hands and looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, she noticed a small smile tugging at her lips, a quiet acknowledgement of the subtle change that had begun inside her, a shift in her perspective that made her heart feel lighter and her mind more open to possibilities. Emma understood, in that moment, that the courage to try new things didn't just create memories or experiences, it had the power to awaken feelings, to nurture connections, and to ignite hope in a life that had long been marked by predictability and cautiousness. The memory of Lucas's gentle guidance, his quiet laughter, the way he had listened to her stories without interruption, and the fleeting brush of his hands against hers lingered in her thoughts, making her imagine the weekend stretching into new adventures, small moments of joy, and perhaps, the beginning of something tender and profound between them. As night fell and the city lights reflected softly on her window, Emma felt a sense of gratitude for having said yes, for stepping into a space that had initially felt intimidating, and for discovering that trying something new wasn't frightening at all. It was liberating, full of warmth, laughter, and the subtle thrill of unexpected connection, and she drifted to sleep with a quiet anticipation for the days ahead, knowing that this first step into uncharted territory had already started to change the rhythm of her life, leaving her heart open and ready for whatever might come. Next, after their first pottery class together, Emma found herself replaying every moment in her mind, the smell of wet clay, the warmth of Lucas's presence, the sound of their laughter mingling in the quiet studio, and she realized with a start that something inside her had shifted. She had always kept her heart guarded, convinced that venturing beyond her comfort zone would only lead to disappointment or heartbreak, yet Lucas had a way of gently pulling her out of herself without even trying, and she discovered that stepping into new experiences could awaken feelings she had long suppressed. Over the next week, he invited her to explore more activities, hiking through nearby trails, cooking classes at a local studio, even a small art exhibit downtown, and each invitation brought a mixture of excitement and nervousness that made her chest flutter with anticipation. Emma's friends noticed the change, commenting on the way she seemed lighter, more animated, more willing to talk about things she usually kept private, and while she couldn't quite put her finger on it, she knew that Lucas was the reason for the small, yet significant, transformation she felt. During their outings, she saw sides of him that she hadn't expected, the patient way he listened, the quiet humor in his observations, the subtle gestures of care, like making sure she had water on their hike or helping her find the right ingredients during a cooking class, and each detail made her heart warm in ways that were both surprising and thrilling. Emma also noticed how their conversations deepened, moving beyond casual topics to dreams, fears, and moments from their past that they had rarely shared with anyone else. One evening, after a long walk through a quiet city park illuminated by soft streetlights and reflecting off a calm river, Lucas stopped and looked at her with an intensity that made her heart race. He spoke softly, his voice carrying a weight that made her listen closely. "Emma, I don't know exactly where this is going, but I know I want to try, with you." Those words, simple yet loaded with meaning, caught her off guard, and she felt a mixture of fear and longing swirl within her. Her mind urged caution, reminding her of past hurts and disappointments, but her heart, for the first time in a long time, overruled the voice of fear. She realized that trying new things wasn't just about hobbies or experiences, it was about opening herself to feelings, to vulnerability, and to the possibility of love that was patient, gentle, and real. Emma felt the walls she had built around herself beginning to soften, brick by brick, as she met Lucas's gaze and whispered, almost breathlessly, that she wanted to try too. From that moment, the tension between them shifted into something tender, something that carried the unspoken promise of shared joy and quiet intimacy, and Emma found herself noticing little things she hadn't before, the way Lucas's smile lingered when he looked at her, the way his hands seemed to brush against hers with casual purpose, the way his presence made ordinary experiences feel extraordinary. Each shared adventure, from cooking a complex recipe to laughing at their failed attempts at a challenging pottery project, became a thread weaving them closer together, and Emma realized that she had never felt so alive, so engaged, so willing to embrace uncertainty and find comfort in the unpredictability of connection. She began to understand that risk and reward weren't always about grand gestures, sometimes it was about small choices, the courage to say yes, to show up, to allow oneself to feel and to be seen, and she felt a sense of liberation she hadn't known was possible. One rainy evening, after a long day exploring the city's hidden cafes and vintage bookstores, Emma sat beside Lucas on a bench, the sound of raindrops softly pattering around them, and felt her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and nervous excitement. Lucas reached out, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face, and Emma's breath caught in her throat at the simplicity and intimacy of the gesture. They stayed there in quiet companionship for a long time, speaking little yet understanding much, and Emma marveled at how her willingness to try new things had led her here, not just to new experiences, but to a connection that felt profound, honest, and full of potential. In the days that followed, Emma noticed the subtle changes within herself, a greater openness to people and possibilities, a willingness to laugh at mistakes, a growing confidence in stepping into the unknown. She realized that life had so many hidden joys waiting to be discovered, but only if she dared to reach beyond the familiar, and Lucas had become the gentle catalyst who helped her see that for herself. As the week ended and they planned their next shared adventure, Emma felt a sense of anticipation and quiet joy unlike anything she had experienced before. The rhythm of her days, once predictable and safe, now carried a thrilling unpredictability, each moment charged with the potential for new experiences, laughter, and tender emotional connection. Emma reflected on the journey she had begun just by saying yes to a simple pottery class, recognizing that her heart had expanded in ways she hadn't expected, that trying new things had not only opened doors to joy and learning but had also made her capable of feeling deeply, of trusting again, and of embracing the vulnerability that came with emotional connection. And as she drifted to sleep that night, her mind replaying the soft warmth of Lucas's gaze and the shared smiles, she felt an unfamiliar but welcome sense of courage, hope, and readiness, knowing that life's beauty lay in exploration, in taking risks, and in allowing oneself to be touched by people and experiences that made the heart beat faster, linger on possibility, and dream of what the future might hold. She understood now that trying new things was not merely a pastime or an adventure, it was a gateway to transformation, a quiet revolution of the heart, and she welcomed it fully, ready to continue the journey with Lucas, with a heart more open, more willing, and more alive than it had been in years, savoring every moment of discovery, every laugh, every shared glance, and every gentle touch that made life feel larger, richer, and infinitely more beautiful. In the weeks that followed, Emma and Lucas's connection deepened in ways that felt natural yet extraordinary, as if every small choice, every shared laugh, and every new experience had woven their lives closer together, making ordinary moments shimmer with meaning. They explored the city hand in hand, discovering hidden cafes with warm wooden interiors, bookstores filled with the scent of old pages, and quiet parks where they could talk for hours or simply sit in companionable silence. Emma noticed how Lucas's presence made even the simplest activities feel special, the way he offered to carry groceries when they shopped for cooking ingredients, the gentle teasing when she accidentally spilled flour across the kitchen counter, the quiet encouragement when she tried to navigate a new hiking trail and lost her balance on slippery stones. With each shared adventure, Emma's heart opened further, the wall she had built around herself crumbling slowly under the warmth of genuine care and attention. She realized that trying new things had not only brought her closer to Lucas but had also taught her to embrace life itself, to see the beauty in moments she had once overlooked, and to find courage in the vulnerability of stepping beyond familiar routines. One chilly evening, they found themselves on a quiet park bench, the city lights reflecting on the river and casting golden glimmers on their faces, and Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude for having said yes to a simple pottery class that had set all of this into motion. Lucas looked at her, his gaze soft yet intent, and in that moment, words became unnecessary. The warmth of his hand in hers, the subtle squeeze, and the shared smile conveyed everything that language could not. Emma thought about the contrast between the cautious, predictable life she had led before and the vibrant, unpredictable days she now experienced, and she marveled at how small risks, saying yes to a new activity, sharing a story, opening her heart, could yield rewards far greater than she had ever imagined. They laughed together as they recounted moments from the pottery class, from spilled clay to awkwardly shaped bowls, and Emma felt a thrill in realizing that every stumble, every attempt at something unfamiliar, had brought them closer, had created memories layered with joy, tenderness, and connection. She thought about her own growth, the courage to try new things, the willingness to feel and express emotions, the discovery that vulnerability could be beautiful rather than frightening, and felt an unfamiliar but welcome confidence, a belief in herself that had been absent for far too long. Over the next few days, their adventures continued, each one leaving an imprint on her heart, cooking meals that didn't always turn out right but tasted perfect when shared, wandering through city streets without purpose but with laughter that echoed between them, and quiet evenings spent in deep conversation, discussing dreams, fears, and the small quirks that made them who they were. Emma realized that life's richness came not from perfection or control but from the willingness to explore, to make mistakes, to connect with others, and to embrace the uncertainty that brought new experiences and unexpected joy. One afternoon, as they strolled along the riverside, Emma felt the gentle touch of Lucas's fingers brushing hers, and in that simple gesture, she understood that love did not always announce itself with grand declarations. It often arrived softly, in moments of shared attention, in laughter, in gentle care, and in the quiet promise of being present for one another. She felt her heart swell with gratitude, not just for Lucas but for the series of choices that had brought her to this point, for the courage to say yes to life, and for the realization that trying new things was a pathway to not only connection but self-discovery, joy, and a sense of being fully alive. As evening fell and the city's lights twinkled like stars reflected in the river, they sat on a bench, hands intertwined, sharing stories of past adventures and dreams for the future, and Emma felt a peaceful exhilaration, the kind that comes when life feels wide open, brimming with possibilities, and filled with the warmth of companionship. She thought about the journey from the first hesitant yes to the pottery class to the laughter, quiet conversations, and shared adventures that had followed, and she understood that the courage to step into the unknown had brought her not only love but a renewed sense of herself, a woman capable of embracing joy, tenderness, and the unpredictable beauty of life. Lucas turned to her, smiling gently, and whispered words that matched the thoughts rushing through her mind. Sometimes, the first step is the hardest, but it's always worth it. Emma squeezed his hand, feeling the truth of that statement in every beat of her heart, knowing that life's most beautiful moments often began with the courage to try, to explore, and to trust the journey. The days that followed were filled with quiet wonder, late-night walks where they shared dreams and confessions, rainy afternoons cooking and laughing over simple mistakes, mornings exploring new streets and discovering small joys hidden in the corners of the city, and evenings spent simply holding hands, the silence between them filled with comfort and understanding. Emma realized that life had taught her a powerful lesson, the willingness to try new things, to take small risks, and to embrace unfamiliar experiences was not just about adventure, it was about awakening the heart, cultivating connection, and discovering the beauty in both life and love. And as she lay in bed each night, reflecting on the richness of her days and the gentle, steady presence of Lucas, she felt a quiet certainty that this was only the beginning, that by stepping beyond her comfort zone, she had unlocked a world of possibilities, tenderness, and emotional depth that she had longed for but never known how to reach. The future was unwritten, filled with unknown paths and gentle surprises, yet Emma no longer felt fear or hesitation. Instead, she felt hope, courage, and a profound gratitude for the small choices that had brought her to this place of connection, self-discovery, and joy. With Lucas by her side, she understood that life's most meaningful experiences often came disguised as risks, that love could be gentle and transformative, and that the heart grew stronger, fuller, and braver when given the chance to explore. Sitting on that bench under the soft glow of the city lights, Emma smiled to herself, knowing that she had embraced the lesson she had long avoided. Trying new things was always good, not just for adventure or discovery, but for the profound, beautiful growth that came when one dared to step into the unknown, open the heart, and allow life to unfold in all its unpredictable, tender, and magnificent wonder. And she felt ready, finally ready, for every new chapter that awaited, her heart full. Her spirit awakened, and her soul quietly, joyfully alive in a world that had suddenly become richer, deeper, and infinitely more beautiful than she had ever imagined.